The year is 2006. The average gas price in America was $2.59. Twitter was just launched. George W. Bush. You see a commercial for this gritty crime game called Saints Row and you think, wow, that looks like GTA but shitty. Little did you know, it was the start of something okay. And then amazing, then okay, then pretty good again, then terrible. The first Saints Row I ever played was the third Saints Row the third. I was a young kid, it had giant wieners in it. I thought it was the best game I ever played, and at that time it kinda was. I used to drive to the clothing store and pretend I owned the place. I used to take Shondi on helicopter rides through the city. I was kind of a baller. As the years started to go by, I realized I neglected what came before Saints Row 3. Saints Row 2. Being a kid, I thought, hey, this looks worse than Saints Row 3. Why did I spend my yearly game purchase on this? But I slowly realized this game was special. The map, the radio, the characters, every single aspect of it was better than the third game in pretty much every way. So I started thinking, what's all this then? What went wrong in this series? Well, the decline of these games is actually pretty simple. You can just tell by looking at the box, really. Saints Row 1, hell yeah, that's some gangsta shit. Saints Row 2, yup, I like it. Saints Row 3, okay, well, a little corporate, but you know, I get you. Saints Row 4, what? Why is he the president? Why is he doing a super ground pound with a Godzilla Red Bull in the background? Keep in mind, I am a fan of the Saints Row series. I played and enjoyed every single game in it, except you didn't happen. These games sold well too. It's not like they weren't received well by the general public, except you didn't happen. There are a few angles to look at it from, but the jump from Saints Row 2 to 3 is a pretty big one. Not only in terms of silliness to coolness ratio, but just also in terms of quality. Drive around in Saints Row 3 for 5 minutes, and you'll realize how lifeless and empty this map is. Every block looks the same. There aren't really any cool landmarks besides the big stripper building and a statue in the water. Now drive around in Saints Row 2 for 5 minutes, and it feels like an amusement park ride. Every single district has its own atmosphere and feel. They accomplished this with limited hardware as well, adopting a strategy used by GTA San Andreas, where every part of the map contrasts so differently with each other, it makes it seem bigger than it actually is. Saints Row 3's map just feels like the back rooms. For me, Saints Row 3 is kind of in a gray area where it seemed like they knew what they wanted to do, but just forgot to actually add gameplay onto that. Take Saints Row 4. At this point, they pretty much gave up on the gangster aesthetic. There's aliens, you're the president now, like, what is happening? It's so far gone from the core of what made the series interesting, you can't even really compare them at this point. It's like comparing Prototype to fucking Bass Pro Fishing. But an empty, lifeless map makes a lot more sense when you're not really looking at it the whole game, because there's a smear effect on it from the fireballs you're shooting. Saints Row 3 didn't have that shit. You just had to sit there and take in the lack of interesting things to see. It almost seemed planned. There was a specific event in the beginning of Saints Row 3 where the community pretty much split in two. It was the classic gangster crime enjoyers and the alien killing superpower enjoyers. Like I said before, I play both sides here. I think both of them are fun. But why even call this Saints Row anymore? The only similarity they have is the color purple. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. What did make Saints Row 2 so special besides the map I mentioned? Well, for me, it strikes a perfect balance between well thought out, gripping, emotional main story missions and wacky, funny side missions and gameplay mechanics. In a very nutshell, the main story is the story of the 3rd Street Saints fighting to the top of the gang food chain. The storylines for the separate gangs are fantastic, filled with great memorable characters and some controller dropping moments. Now, after you finish an intense mission, you can take a break to spray shit on a civilian or a building, participate in a very realistic episode of Cops, throw people into helicopter blades, all while chugging a 40. This game was hard to put down. Even when you get tired of throwing fire hydrants at elderly women, you can go do a Brotherhood mission and get your mind blown. Also, while writing this video, I realized this mix of funny and serious stuff is the same reason I love the Yakuza series so much. It isn't really relevant at all, but there you go. There's so many fun things that were just removed in future iterations. In Saints Row 2, if you go to a gas station bathroom, you can have sex with a hooker in a QTE minigame. They didn't need to add that. I think they realized that for Saints Row 3 and were just like, wait, why do extra work? Remember that mechanic where you could pick up objects on the street and use them as weapons? We got rid of it. Why? Don't you ever ask these kind of questions. It's stuff like that that makes Saints Row 2 so special. You can feel the love in every corner of the game. Saints Row 3 is like the opposite. I feel like the devs knew that as well, because Saints Row 4 made such a massive change for pure gameplay that I think worked, honestly. Saints Row 4 is a fun-ass game. You have all these superpowers and crazy weapons at your disposal. And what really stands out to me upon replay are the main story missions. These are great. So many huge, intricate set pieces that are a love letter to the past games, especially Saints Row 2. Saints Row 4 is in a weird place because I feel like it was made for old school fans while also stripping everything that made it good. You blow up the world, kill everyone, take this massive left turn with the tone and gameplay, and stick me in a simulation to save a bunch of characters from Saints Row 1 and 2. You know what I mean? It just seems like they didn't really know what they were doing. I still consider it a good game though. The fun factor for Saints Row 4 is substantial. It just lacks the emotional depth that Saints Row 2 or even 3 did in some aspects. After Saints Row 4, they made a spin-off with a fan favorite character and Kinzie. The twist is you're in hell and you have to kill the devil or whatever. It's a good game. I enjoyed it, but it seemed like it was just here to shut people up sometimes. Yeah, just make a bunch of endings and get them to pick the one that helps them sleep the best at night. One of the biggest plot holes and mysteries in the series that old school fans were dying to get the ending of was finished in this game. You want to know what it is? That's it. 2 full games of build up. That's how they put a bow on it. But I'm not here to shit on the whole series. I really do love it. I can't really put a coherent sentence together to explain how much this game upsets me, so I'm just gonna set this up. Take every disliked piece from the worst Saints Row games. Alright, put that in there. Now take all the best parts of the Saints Row games and throw them out the goddamn window. Okay, now fill it with bugs and you're good. I really was hopeful for this game. The teasers were honestly very promising, and I thought they got it out of their system after Saints Row 4 and Get Out of Hell, and they were just ready to reboot it back to its roots. I could not have been more wrong. If you're a fan of the Saints Row series at all, walking through this game feels like walking through your hometown after it was demolished by a nuclear warhead. You might be thinking, come on, there's no way it's that bad, right? You're just like comparing it to the different games? No, this game is terrible. The story and characters feel like they were written as a parody of how corporations think young people talk. Hey dude, you see that lit new post on Instagram? Nah man, I was busy going beast mode on my video game. The map is probably the best thing about this game, but that's really not saying anything. The gameplay just isn't fun. At least in the places Saints Row 4 failed to deliver on, it was still a fun game on a very surface level. The mechanics make no sense, the AI is terrible, it's filled with bugs and glitches, there's no customization. It just felt like they wanted one last ooh-rah before going out. They didn't know what else to do but slap the Saints Row name on it and market it as something that they knew people wanted. It was like saying, don't worry, we hear you guys. How about the opposite? The Saints Row series will unfortunately go down as a disappointment. Something that started out promising, but with every iteration, the hope just disappeared. But the bottom line is, you can still play Saints Row 2, right? Like on PC. It works. It's not broken and the developers haven't fixed it for 15 years. Okay, alright, cool. Thank you for watching.